Big story going on right now is the Jesse Williams speech at the BET Awards. This happened last night, June 26, 2016. Now, if you don't know what the BET Awards are, it's basically a black award show. You know, of course, they cover black performance in music, sports, things like that. Any kind of black achievement. Now, this award that I'm about to talk about was given out to a guy named Jesse Williams. Now, if you don't know who Jesse Williams is best known for his work on Grey's Anatomy, and he says a lot of things about black issues. He speaks up like a social justice warrior all the time. So what he did here at the BET Awards was not necessarily anything new, but I guess, you know, due to the platform of the BET Awards, you know, you had the whole thing with Oscars So White, and then you had more folks that say we should focus more on the BET Awards as a black outlet rather than trying to rely on the Oscars or anything else to, air quotes, represent blackness. So this BET Awards probably had a little bit more of a viewership because of that. And you also had Beyonce perform to open it up with a rapper named Kendrick Lamar. These are two of the biggest black artists in music right now. But the point is, it's a pretty big show. It was a lot of importance and a lot of pomp and circumstance surrounding it. Now, Jesse Williams gets up and accepts this like humanitarian award, some kind of award for him being the SJW. It was presented to him by the president of BET, Miss Debra Lee. Now, this is where things kind of go left. He gets on stage and basically delivers an anti-white speech. Now, I want to go through it point by point. I won't play it here because I don't want them to copyright strike me or anything, but I'll put the full video in the description box below so you can check it out for yourself. But from the beginning, he just immediately shouts out civil rights activists. Now, he did not say anybody by name, but you can pretty much put two and two together and you can figure out who he was talking about. Then he says, you know, shout out to all the black women for all you have to go through, for having the burden of the world on your shoulders, basically, for taking care of people, etc. Even though his mom is actually white, right? He's mixed. He is half black, half white. They showed his parents in the crowd, and I'll place a picture of them on the screen before you so you can see. And his mom is like super white. His mom is like a Swedish potter, like a professional potter. I found this picture. I'm not quite sure if that's her or not, but you can compare the two pictures side by side and you can pretty much make an assertion there. And when you look at Jesse Williams, he does not necessarily look like he's actually black. But I digress. Let's get back to the speech. Now, he talked about Tamir Rice and how the officer pulled up and killed him and went home and made a sandwich. It's like, how do you know what happened when the officer went home? You know, how do you know that he didn't go home and have a hard time dealing with that? Because he realized that he killed somebody that was very young, even though it was not something that he should be ashamed of for doing, as far as having to take Tamir Rice's life, because he felt like his life was in danger. When you have somebody that's brandishing a gun, I mean, what do you do? And how long do you wait before you realize that the gun is fake or not? Because he must have gone to his family as well. So you don't really know how he dealt with that whole situation. This was kind of like the whole feel of the entire speech. It was a lot of emotion. It was not much fact. It was just Jesse Williams basically airing his own insecurities, being a very light-skinned mixed guy who probably wishes that he was either 100% black or 100% white. I can guarantee you that he probably encountered some bullying as a kid growing up, especially if he lived in an all-black area or all-white area. He's not able to fit into either one. It's a lot of that happens. You have people like Farrakhan, who's very light-skinned, Malcolm X. You got the guy Larry Wilmore, who does the nightly show after Trevor Noah, who is also the same way, mixed, light-skinned. People that have hard times dealing with their insecurities. Now, don't get it wrong. I'm not trying to say that all light-skinned people or all mixed people have problems with their identity, but it does happen. You see a lot of these black SJWs speak in an emotional way like Jesse Williams did here, and you kind of see where it comes from. It comes from personal insecurities. That's what they're doing. They're not really trying to assist. They're just speaking emotionally because they have their own personal emotional problems. But I digress. Let's get back to the speech. Now, you also brought up Sandra Bland, even though Sandra Bland killed herself, right? It was not police involvement, and there were people of different races that were involved. And this is where he got into more of the racial stuff. He says that somehow white people are able to be disarmed and not killed when blacks are not. But if you look at the statistics, the reality is that whites are more likely to be killed by police than blacks are, and more of them are killed than blacks. Now, of course, that's going to be true because you have more whites in the country than blacks. But like I said before, like I just said, whites are also more likely to be killed by police in a similar situation because police are more apprehensive to kill a black person due to the fact that they don't want to be on Time Magazine, Darren Wilson. They don't want to be ruined forever. So basically, they're kind of gambling with their life to figure out, do I want to shoot this person that is threatening my life and may take my gun or may do something to harm me in a very serious way that may not be able to be repaired, right? I may be permanently injured or I may be permanently ruined. It's a hard decision. So that's real, but he doesn't talk about that because, again, it comes from an emotional place from dealing with his own personal demons. But let's move on. And then he says that this invention called whiteness uses and abuses us, buries black people out of sight and out of mind, extracting our culture, our dollars, and entertainment like oil, black gold. Then he goes on to say, ghettoizing and demeaning our creations, then stealing them, gentrifying our genius, then trying us on like costumes before discarding our bodies like rinds of strange fruit. That's an exact quote. If you're not really familiar with what he was saying, there were some dog whistles in there, and I'll point them out to you if you didn't catch them. Now, the first one, an invention called whiteness. I guess he's referring to, the whole thing about slavery, when before that, it wasn't really a thing about being white versus black, but that kind of came into existence after that. I'm not sure if that's true or false, but it doesn't even really matter. The thing is, how can you talk about whiteness using and abusing you? Your mom is white, my guy. I mean, all men should love their mothers. All men, all boys should love their mothers if they had good mothers. And this woman, this Potter, this Swedish lady, looks like she's very nice. I don't see why she would be in the audience smiling with him and his father. They probably been together for 100 years. I don't see why she would be there supporting him if she was not a nice person. So why would you go out there and say this thing about white people when your mom is white, when you're half white yourself? Maybe he wants to be 100% white or 100% black, but he's kind of stuck in the middle and he's kind of having a hard time dealing with it. And it's dangerous to people that are not really aware of what's going on, people that are emotionally weak, and they are susceptible to messages like this. They hear what he says and they're like, right on, I love it. But they don't really understand what's going on. They're just attached to the emotional part of it. It's like a cricket preacher that has the hearts of the congregation, but teaches them bad things. That's kind of what Jesse Williams did here. And then he says that it uses and abuses us. I mean, but what do you mean? Like, we talking about basketball, talking about entertainment. Look, those are things that we voluntarily do. A lot of us work our whole lives and we work very hard to be able to get to a certain point. Now, if you're in America and you're an entertainer or whatever, and you want to get to a large audience, your audience will most certainly be white. And if you have a large audience of whites, that includes people of all ages. And if you're reaching people of all ages, then that means eventually you're going to be able to reach children and you'll be able to influence them. So when you say that whites are stealing your ideas, I mean, maybe it's just because we're influential and everybody is influenced by what blacks do. So you can't really call it stealing because we do the same. Everybody does that all around the world. Blacks, whites, Asians, whatever. We all kind of take from each other. Now, ghettoizing and demeaning our creations. This right here, this is where he gets more into just poetry. This is like something he wrote. I'm pretty sure he practiced it in the mirror before he came to the BET Awards. He knew that it would create a lot of controversy. And I think that this may be kind of an angle that he has for his career because Jesse Williams is not really like a big actor. You know, when you think of black actors, when you think of actors in general, you don't really think, oh, Jesse Williams, get him for the next big movie. You think people like Will Smith, Samuel L. Jackson, maybe even Ving Rhames or somebody like that. You don't think Jesse Williams for big roles. I think this was a way for him to utilize what he's been doing to capitalize on it and make a bigger name for himself and at the same time vent his own personal insecurities. The last part of this whole statement that I quoted, he says, before discarding our bodies like rinds of strange fruit. Now, there was a song a very long time ago. I forget exactly who the artist was, but if I recall who the woman was, I'll place her picture, maybe her name on the screen before you. The song was talking about trees in the South, how they would bear strange fruit, which was people that had been lynched that were hanging from it like fruit, right? So when he says strange fruit, that's what he's talking about. He's talking about people being hung. But we're talking about 2016. When was the last time that anybody got lynched? You see, this is just harping on old things to wear on people's emotions to get them to be into a state to where it's like, oh, well, I identify with that. I agree with that. The worst part about the whole thing was the fact that Justin Timberlake somehow got involved. Now, after the speech, many people on Twitter, I think Questlove gave Jesse Williams a shout out. A lot of folks were saying that it was great. He got a standing ovation in the audience, if I'm not mistaken. And then Justin Timberlake, of course, who is white, gave him a shout out. After an anti-white speech, basically, Justin Timberlake said he liked it, right? And then somebody on Twitter attacked him for that, saying, what does that mean? Or does that mean you're going to stop appropriating our music? Are you going to apologize to Janet Jackson? Now, Janet Jackson, that whole thing was about a Super Bowl performance many years ago. I'm not quite sure what year that was, but it was a long time ago. I watched it live, I remember. Now, they were performing some song. They were on the stage, and then somehow Justin Timberlake reached up on Janet Jackson's upper chest by her neck, and then he ripped her shirt or whatever that was, her jacket, and then her breast came out, and she had a very large nipple piercing on it. It was like a sun with rays. It was very big, and it pretty much covered up most of the breast. But it was a shocker. I mean, people had never seen anything like that before. I mean, I'm pretty sure at this point in 2016, with the way our society is kind of falling when it comes to any kind of morality and decency on TV, that wouldn't even really be a big deal. But during this point in time, it was a very big deal. It almost canceled the whole Super Bowl. And people were instantly blaming Justin Timberlake for that. They said that he just ripped her breasts out. They said that he was just trying to embarrass Janet Jackson on a national stage. But right when I saw it, I knew something was kind of fishy. I thought he did that on purpose. But at the same time, I thought it was planned because she had this very large nipple piercing on her breast. I'm like, she wouldn't wear that just normally. Like, she wouldn't wear that to go to to put a dress on or something like that, because you can see like this big ass sun. She had to do that for this particular situation. But I thought that it was something that Timberlake was in on. But it came out later that that was Janet Jackson's idea and that Timberlake had nothing to do with it. But over the years, people have associated Justin Timberlake with that incident, thinking that he had something to do with it. Like it was his plan and it was his fault. So he got attacked immediately for that. And then Justin Timberlake responded. He was like, basically being real nice. And then that created a big backlash, because that harkens back to the video I did responding to Miss Cheska Lee, or Francesca Ramsey, about the whole thing about being colorblind. And I said, hey, how can it be bad to be colorblind? If you want racism to end, then how can you say that colorblindness is a bad thing? And that is what people did to Justin Timberlake. They were saying that he was being colorblind and that it was a bad thing to do that. So now he's being attacked on Twitter and was forced to apologize. But I'm like, man, why would you apologize? But at the same time, his first mistake was saying he liked his speech. He should have just kept completely quiet, because he opened himself up to that. Now, I'm not saying it's right that he got attacked. Obviously, it's not. I mean, you shouldn't be attacked just because you white, black, whatever. But at the same time, he had to understand what will come as a result, right? Because many have accused him of appropriating black music, which ain't even a real thing. Just because Justin Timberlake is good at music that blacks have traditionally done very well does not mean anything other than the fact that he's good at what he does. Who cares? If it's good music, it's good music, regardless of what. Just like if you got a black guy that's very good at metal or whatever the case is, it doesn't matter. I mean, you got people overseas. See, a lot of times Americans have a very myopic point of view. I mean, you go overseas, you got baby metal in South Korea, a bunch of Korean girls that are over there doing metal music mixed with rap, and it's kind of melodic. Over here, it's like many of us are still stuck on segregation. We want everything to be divided. And then anytime somebody jumps into a realm that they are not seen as welcome, then it has to be a problem. It's stupid. If you want to have racism be eliminated, you can't have all these divisions and cliques and racial things that are only able to be done or said or anything else by one particular racial group. That's pretty much where I'm at with it. So in closing, this whole speech from Jesse Williams basically opened up another wound, a never healing wound of racial division that consistently presents itself in American society. I mean, how many more times are we going to have a situation like this that happens and then it creates a big uproar online? I don't think it will actually spill into the real streets, but that's not to say that it won't, because look at the whole Black Lives Matter movement. That went into the streets and caused a big time problem in major inner cities. It caused a violence and a homicide rate to jump up exponentially. So that's not to say that the same thing will happen here. People see this speech and then they go to work and then they're upset at their white coworkers if they're black. I saw the comedian Gary Owen, who's married to a black woman and he's white, said that right after the speech happened, his wife just was completely quiet and didn't say anything anymore, right? Because his wife, by the way, is like a Black Panther person back in the, the 70s, 80s, whatever. She's kind of like sensitive to black issues, but married to a white guy. And that kind of encapsulates the whole thing. People are insecure personally, then they take the insecurities out on regular people, regular citizens that are not necessarily feeling that way because they want to feel more secure about themselves. And what it ends up doing is creating more insecurity and more strife and more division. So what say you? Do you think it was a good thing that Jesse Williams got on TV and did this speech? And if so, what good came from it? What do we do from here? Where do we go? Or are you more like myself thinking that this was not a good speech, that it really just creates more division, it creates more strife, and it creates more anger between the races in a time in which we need to have more unity? All these racial problems, all the problems with Islam coming from overseas, we need to band together as a people. And if we can't band together, at least be able to coexist without all these problems. So that's all I got. Whatever your comments are, positive or negative, let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.